This video is sponsored by the Design Mechanism, the makers of Mithras. Mithras is a registered trademark of the Design Mechanism Inc., used with permission. All rights reserved. Hello, and welcome to this week's. I will not put an adjective in front of it. This week's adventure in the world of Mithras. We're currently running an Odes campaign, almost like a homebrew campaign, but using the standard rules. And you join us as ever on a Saturday evening here in the UK, where we'll be playing for another, roughly about 3 hours. We'll take a 10-minute break about halfway through, and then that's it. We'll be here for the rest of the evening. So before I give you a quick synopsis of what's been going on, I'm going to allow the players an opportunity for them to say who they are and who they will be playing in tonight's campaign. And we'll start off by going over to that way, to the person who always starts it off. We'll let Mr. Chuggerwugger do that.
Hi guys, I'm Chuggerwugger. The character that I play is called Gulliver. He's the youngest member of the party. Bit scrawny, ginger haired. He is an apprentice in one of the 4 sorcery orders on Odes. His particular order is called the Order of the Kraken, and the Blue Order, and it specializes in spells revolving around communication, transportation, and teleportation. So as the sorcerer, he has the ability to shape his spells, so he can change the power and the magnitude, the range, the number of targets they affect, or he can even combine several spells into one single casting. He also has folk magic spells. Now, in the campaign, we class the folk magic part of the sorcery as minor cantrips, which he can cast. And I shall pass on to the person that's not in the UK, Mr. Pickles.
I am our token American, I guess, in this group. I'm Mr. Pickles, and I play Bartleby Fumus, who is our team's theist. He serves Amriel, the light moon goddess of enlightenment. She gives a lot of strange visions to Bartleby and grants him the ability to work some miracles through her power, such as healing, removing disease, making beautiful, ultra powerful moonlight shields that block attacks pretty effectively. He also is our team's knowledgeable person about history of this land, seeing as he's in this land and a few of our team members are not from this continent. And he also has an obsessive knowledge about monsters, particularly goblins. And that about sums up Bartleby Fumus beyond the mask and bracelet he wears, which I'm assuming Inuos will share shortly. Longshanks, take it away.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pickles. Hi guys, I'm Longshanks CPG. Tonight, as always, I play the character Hengist. He is a tall, strapping warrior, bulked out in heavy plate armor, rocking a sword and shield. He comes from a foreign land, so he's not actually from Odes, like some of the characters in the party are. And there was a massive sort of like civil war when he was younger, and stuff happened in his family. Sort of like went from being quite powerful to being a very minor house. He then had to go off and train to be a swordsman with his uncle. who taught him to be a swordsman, but his uncle's very much to lead. Before you lead, you have to learn how to follow. So Hengist was a follower, and he's now in his process starting to try and become a leader and a noble warrior to back that up. He's come over to Odest to try and save his sister, because his sister was kidnapped on the eve of her wedding by a fearsome cult called the Twin-Headed Snake, who we've, as a party, had a number of run-ins with over the course of the campaign. Not all of them have gone very well. And I'll leave it to Medivac to finish up.
Why, thank you, sir. Hello, all. I'm Medivac, and I play Hazra Khan. He's a nomad. He is from the steppes north of Oles. He's the group's stout tracker, all-round outdoory person. He's a spear and a scimitar. He's currently without a spear. But yes, he's the newest member of the group, but he's trying to blend in with the group as best as he can. I think he's doing okay at the moment, but we shall see. And with that, I shall pass on to Im Wells, our GM.
and all of that via muted, so that was a good start. Anyway, let's get straight on, and I just want to move you guys to the map, which you should be on now. So you left the town here, and and OBS, are you guys still there?
Yep.
I'm still here, yeah.
Yeah.
Waiting with bated breath.
No, well, OBS doesn't look like it's doing anything. It's everything is completely and utterly still.
So we check the Twitch.
Yeah, are you on Twitch?
Yeah, it's still streaming. But
We're all, what do you call it? Paused.
right, I'm moving now.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay then. Right. So I brought the map up for you. So you're actually on this wagon heading out of Northport. And if you remember, this river here is the one that you think is the River of Eels. That was mentioned that Bartleby actually got his skill roll for a long time ago. So let me describe to you what you're actually traveling through. This is the Black Vale, and you have to imagine the Black Vale is almost like a barren moorland. It stretches out as far as the eye can see, and you can, on clear days, you can actually see right the way along to the coast and all the way up to the mountains that tower above. Centuries of grazing and people herding animals around it has left almost like a rocky substrate all over the place, and now only the hardiest of plants with very shallow roots actually is able to survive. There's no lushness in this area at all. There appears to be just a carpet of very thin and hardy moor grass, that rather coarse stuff that you don't really want to walk through with bare feet. As you look across the plains, occasionally there seems to be small settlements dotted the landscape, and these look almost like mud and straw huts. They don't look to be anything more substantial, and even then there's only sort of like one or two huts, and they seem to be close together, either where water has gathered and pooled together in certain locations, or little rivulets of water run towards the River of Eels. There seem to be across the plains small hillocks. They're not hills, they tend to be sort of almost like mounds, and you can see that dotted around the place as you start to journey across here. They seem to be some kind of dry stone forts. A lot of them seem to be in ruin now. They don't appear to be lived in, although as you get to the first night of traveling, and if anybody wants to do anything during that time, I'll let you have a chance to say that in a second. But as you sort of like travel across the moor, you come to almost like the sun going down, and you do notice that some of the more distant forts or small hillock stone buildings do seem to have some kind of subdued light on it. It seems to be probably a fire that is carefully being guarded by the wind that actually sort of like rushes across the open plain, and it seems to be the fire seem to be, you know, being built behind walls, so it's not sort of like stretching out huge amounts of light or anything like that. You have seen in your first day of travel what appears to be sheep herders. They could be sheep, they could be goats. They were kept off at far distances, and they seem to be 3, 4, 5 humans tending the sheep. They, as you travelled across the moorlands and they saw you, they became rather static, as if to ascertain which direction you were going in. And if any of them were sort of like moving in your general direction, you found that they moved away and started to head in a different way. They did seem to be, from what you can see, they did seem to be armed, but probably just with spears rather than anything else. Apart from that, you've come to the evening of the first day of travel, and you've actually luckily managed to find a small hill fort quite close, about a day's travel from Norport. It's been very ransacked, and it's just the bare outlines of the wall still left there, and it's as if it's been disused and disregarded for some time now, and you do think that certain parts of the stone have actually been removed. There seems to be no sign of any activity within the fort, and so it would seem to be a good place, as the remaining stonework left there, providing you with some sort of protection from the wind that blows from the southeast down across to Norport. And you sort of like get the cart up there, deal with the horse, probably light a fire, but keep it guarded in the stonework so it's not blaring out all over the place. And you sit down ready to spend the evening together. And that's when I will stop talking and let you go.
Now, I stayed back, so I went back on the track to make sure nobody was following us. I take it nobody was following us, and I've caught up with the group now.
You can make me a perception roll. You can augment it with your survival skill.
Certainly. Okay, that's going to be plus a 13.
Yeah. So hang on.
51.
For some unknown reason, the dice pool is not showing. Oh, there we go. That seems to be fine. There seems to be nobody sort of like following you at all. It seems that you've sort of like probably left the building, left Norport quite easily, and headed across.
Wonderful, thank you.
Before we left Norport, we visited with Silas Slump.
That is true.
Of Fastilius from Lindo, and he gave us a map in return for us providing some information about the mountains on our return.
Yeah,
the map was supposed to show a safe way through the to get past the forts that might be inhabited. Have we managed to pick up the trail of that map? Through the various landmarks.
There seems to be no trail on the ground. It appears more that it's a trail on a map, and it would require either navigation or survival or stealth or something, a similar skill to actually match it. This is where the trail actually starts. This sort of like area of this hill fort is quite only in a day's travel from Norport, and it starts actually from here. So anybody, once you set off again, it'll be a case, just like you were saying, of matching landmarks along the way to try to pick your way through the remaining areas.
Okay. Gulliver's going to turn to Bartleby. He's going to say, Bartleby, will we have Amriel's blessing tonight?
Of course, you're always welcome to a blessing from Amriel. I just suppose I need to know what you ask. Would you like me to pray for her to bless us and keep us safe from the elements as we sleep, or perhaps a nice calming could ease your nerves, letting Amriel into your mind and soul?
I was actually wondering how much light we were going to have, whether or not it was going to be, well, whether or not the moon was going to be up.
That's a good question. Let me look into the sky really quick and get a feel for that. Is the calendar correct in Wolves?
Yeah, it's the 14th month of Farlast at the present moment in time. So Amriel is waxing and Maroth is in his first quarter. So if anything, everything is sort of like level pegging between both Maroth and Amriel at the moment.
It won't be the worst night, that's for sure. Seems to be very even, Gulliver. There's nothing to worry about.
Do you know anything about the inhabitants of these plains?
I might. Can I roll history?
Yes, you can roll a history roll and see what you come up with.
Big history. Ow.
Yeah, you do remember, probably from gathering some information before you left Norport, maybe even in Fastilius' Slump's office. You do remember that this area is quite barren. It used to be quite fertile, but overgrazing by herd animals such as goat and sheep have actually reduced it. It was home to the Black Veil Barbarians. And although their name were Barbarians, that was more of a name that was given to them by the more civilized people who came to live in this area. It sounds like very much like the same sort of like takeover war that happened when you were in Advent and meeting up with the Barbarians that used to be part of Hazaret's tribe. It appears now that the Barbarians, for want of a better word, have succumbed more to, it's almost like herders. They are rumoured to be living in small tribal groups. They're not at all together as they used to be, and as these tribal groups, there's been rumoured to be, from passing travellers, to be quite a lot of competition and rivalry between the groups. There were rumours that you overheard in taverns before you set off, that if the Black Veil Barbarians actually did come together under one leader, then they would become quite a formidable foe to actually attack Norport. But at the present moment in time, that seems not to be the case from what you've heard.
The sheep herders that we've seen on, as we've been travelling to where we currently are from Norport, have they been dressed similar to the people that accosted us in the tavern?
Well, there were two lots of people who accosted you. The two that
the second guy.
Yeah, they're more attuned to the second guy rather than the first ones. First ones were probably more to street thugs, maybe hired help, for within the town. More of the stature of the second guy. But they do look very much like Hazra would dress. They seem to be more protecting their herds, and they seem to be trying to avoid trouble or avoiding a cart and wagon with 4 people travelling on it.
I'm sure that if we came into trouble or needed some assistance, Amriel's blessings should be able to get them to be agreeable to us.
That's good then.
I think tonight that perhaps we should I'm going to set some traps out to catch any wild food. And also we should do a watch. But I know you Gulliver, you need to rest. And I think Mr. Bartleby does too. So Hengist, would you do a shift with the watch with me? And we could split it between us.
That sounds like a wise plan, Hazra. Yeah, I'm more than happy to share part of the watch with you.
I did rest before we left Norport, so I can take my turn in it. Is there any signs that this place has actually been used before?
I will have a look, and Hazra will look around the ground while there's still light in the sky and see if there's any signs of any inhabitants or any footprints that have recently gone through here.
Well, roll your tracking skill. Yeah, but by the time you get up there, unless you want to look it.
No.
Yeah. So by the time you get up there, it's almost like a second thought, and people have already sort of like started to disturb the earth. And you put the cart and the horse up, or the donkey up there. So looking around now, there doesn't seem to be any footprints or anything that's different from your own. But that's not necessarily to say that they were. Can you just roll your survival skill just for your traps that will be set out? Okay, cool. And so you go out and you set up one lot of traps. So just make sure that you tally mark it off. And then what I would like you all to do, obviously Hengist and Hazra are going to keep watch, and Gulliver as well.
Well, Gulliver wants to take a turn. I mean, he's never sort of like not taken a watch. He likes to make sure that he does pull his weight, even though he doesn't,
Okay, yeah.
Too secure, keeping an eye out by himself.
And what about Bartleby?
I mean, I'm going to be up at midnight anyways, praising my goddess, so I may as well take a shift.
Okay then. So
so if you take the first shift then until midnight, and then we can go after that. So you can do your midnight thing.
Okay, so if you all roll for me just straight perception rolls, just for the night's watch, to see whether or not you pick something up. Okay, let's have a look. Okay, so the piece of information that's coming out, that Hazra and Gulliver, you will have heard this because you needed to succeed in a hard roll in order to actually recognize that this is going on throughout the night. So you're a bit why is that not turning off? I see. It's quite interesting throughout the night because everything seems to be rather quiet. There seems to be no sort of like crickets singing or animals roaming around the place, not even small rodents coming around in the fort, the relict hill fort. So it was something that you would have thought there would have been some kind of life. You do hear the odd bleat far off in the distance, but there is something that you hear that alarms you somewhat more than the bleat. And just to let you know, Hazra and Gulliver, you both needed a formidable success on this roll, which you both got, and so this sound is far away, as if it's been carried almost by the wind. And it's one of those awful, awkward things that you're almost like doing something and you pick it up, but then when you actually strain to hear it, you just hear the whistle of the wind. And you're pretty sure that there seemed to be a sound of combat. It didn't seem to be cries. It didn't seem to be like metal bashing or anything like that. It seemed to be cries, and there was definitely something very guttural in the sounds. You think humans were involved, but there seemed to be some kind of animal as well. And like I say, you literally caught it, and it probably was at the end of Hazra's watch, or the beginning of Gulliver's, or the end of Gulliver's and the beginning of Hazra's. So it was sort of like in the same time period, and you both picked it up. And then sort of like almost like thought nothing of it, but it's only when you sort of like woke up together and started to talk about it, that Hazra and Gulliver, you sort of like brought the ideas together to sort of like think, oh, hang a minute, we did actually hear something. So the night passes uneventfully apart from that. So people like Gulliver and Bartleby, you will have your spells, your magic points back up. Remember, Bartleby, you'll then take some of that magic points. If you need to replenish your devotional pool, then you'll be taking that across, so your magic pool will go down slightly because of that. But apart from that, any fatigue or anything like that will be removed. Luck, of course, replenished itself at the beginning of the session. Yeah, so you wake up. Hazra, you go out to find your traps, and just to let you know, none of them have even been sprung. It looks like there's hardly any wildlife of any description within the surrounding area.
Yeah. I'll pick up my traps and then put them back in my backpack.
Okay, cool.
The way that we've been traveling, or the way that we were traveling yesterday, were we walking into the wind?
Yeah. So if you're traveling almost like in a northwesterly direction, and the wind comes straight down the plain. So on the actual map, let me just show you. So you're let me just draw this on. So you're sort of like traveling in this direction. Yeah, can you see that? And the wind comes shooting down this direction. So it's as if it's almost like being funneled down this coastal line via the mountains. You know, as if it's sort of like coming from further up in the north, and you know, it's quite a bitterly cold wind. It's definitely not balmy in this area at all, and you can see why there's no trees or saplings out there across the vale, because this wind would literally, you know, if it picked up, it would literally sort of like knock them over, and then that would be it.
Okay, so as we're preparing to break camp, as we're having breakfast, Gulliver's going to bring to the attention of the others what he heard, and see what people's sort of thoughts are on it. So he's going to say, "I might have been mistaken, but I'm sure I heard something last night. It was almost like it was carried on the wind, which would say that it was maybe from the direction where we were, that we might be traveling. It sounded like combat, but away."
That's strange, because I could have sworn I heard the same thing when I was taking over the watch. It was very distant, and like you said, it just for a moment, it was very guttural, and yes, and it seemed to be coming from this over here, up above us.
But it was far away.
Yes,
I didn't hear anything, so it either had finished or I must have
That's
missed
not
that.
common.
But it's worth keeping a good lookout at all times if there was some sort of combat. It could have been, perhaps it could have been some of the barbarians.
I think we need to find how to get our bearings on this map that we've been given.
If you can work out the map and point to me in front of us where we need to go, perhaps maybe I would scout ahead, ahead of the cart, and then if anything does happen, at least we have a warning for me to run back and tell you.
Well, I can read and write, Hazra, but what I can't, I'm not very good at. Well, I'm not very good at getting my bearings on places.
I understand, but this is
most of my life, and it's really really hard to. I mean, all it's given me is a couple of faults here and there, and a squiggly line going.
Like a dotted line, yeah.
Yes, I mean it's very hard to run up in a town with all the roofs and the buildings with no open spaces, whereas I cannot read nor write, as you know, but I understand the wilderness around me. So maybe together we could perhaps work this out. If you could tell me what these meanings are on this parchment you hold, perhaps we can work out what they represent in front of us.
Well, I think the ones that we're trying to avoid are the ones that might be inhabited by the raiders, the bandits.
The forts, yes.
But
Yes.
the other thing maybe if we have a look at it, and because it's supposed to lead us through the ones that don't have any watches. So we know that some of them last night had lights in them.
Mm.
So maybe if we look at those on the map and any other landmarks that we find and see whether or not we can work out exactly which way to go.
Does anybody actually have a navigation skill?
No.
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 Okay then, does anybody have a skill that could be related to maps or reading maps, etc.?
Does insight only work on people?
Yes.
Have history and locale.
Okay then.
Actually, all I have is tracking and survival.
Okay, so what we'll have to do therefore is almost like you're going to have to do some kind of team test here. So what will happen is that because you don't have the skills specifically and you've got no guide or anything like that, you do have the map. So what we'll do is that we'll link a whole load of skills together, and then we can use it as presenting certain amounts of percentages over to one person. So if we take let's use this Hazra's survival role as the person who's going to roll it, and I'm quite happy for anybody to sort of like state why they think they should have a skill that could help in this situation, that can be used to augment Hazra's survival role. Just to let you know how I will deal with it is that I will increase the difficulty rather than putting penalties onto dice rolls or anything like that. Yeah, so Hazra will use his survival roll. So the other three of you, are there any skills that you could make a case for that would say, yes, I think I can actually help with this navigation through?
Well,
Okay, so Gulliver has one question, and that is there any writing on the map, any information that he might be able to use to pass on using part of his literacy?
Yeah, so the map is generally made up of images, like most maps are. However, there are certain words on there that are numbers that might indicate roughly how many people are in the fort, etc., which you assume, or names for them. So
Is there any numbers that might mean distances between them, or days travel, or anything like that?
Possibly there might be a scale there, a rough scale that gives you that. So I'm quite happy to allow you to use your literacy to actually promote 20% of that onto the dice roll. Don't roll anything yet, though. Anyone else?
Hengist will probably help with his survival, though it's nowhere near as good as Hazra's, and it's probably slightly different. Instead of just like surviving on the land, he used it more as a survival whilst on patrol and that sort of thing is in his previous location. So
Okay, then.
I'd like to use that if possible.
Okay. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yes. My argument here is to apply lore history to this. In like studying history, you see how things change, and to make an educated guess of how the changed landscape might be representative on the map, or how things may have changed.
Okay then. So Gulliver and Hengist and Bartleby, you need to give your 20% skill rolls to Hazra. Hazra needs to put that into his temporary to up the skill of his survival, and then we can do the roll. So I think you got 11% from Gulliver.
So is that a 13?
13 from Bartleby and 9 from Hengist. So that's
9, so 33.
Yeah. So put that in your temporary. And
the difficulty goes up 1 level per person.
No. Say for example,
I know what you were about to say.
If somebody had a navigation skill, say, the difficulty for success would have been, say, standard. But because we're almost like...
I'm with you. I didn't know that the person who was putting more in it was making it more difficult for them.
No, not at all. Yeah. Okay, then, Hazra, you need to roll your survival.
I will have a look and see what we can do.
Do you wish to...
I will look at it, because we've been talking about this for a while. We're really in the moment. So I will look. That's now we'll re-roll it.
Okay. And actually get worse, which is okay. So
maybe we're looking too hard at this.
So you are quite familiar with Hazra's traveling skills and guides. I think once when you left Aylesford, or was it Thorson?
We went. One direction.
It was
we found some stones.
Yeah. And things do not seem to be going well throughout this day. So you sort of like all working towards, and sort of like Hazra sort of like says, this is the direction, we're going this way. And then, as you're sort of like walking or riding along in the cart, you suddenly notice that, one of the hill forts is getting rather close on one side. So you quickly sort of like change direction slightly and start to head off in a different direction, and then you suddenly find that you come across another one and you have to divert, and you all sort of like, even Hazra himself is getting at some point you actually turn the map round the opposite way to see whether or not you're doing it correctly. And you seem to spend the majority of the day, you stop for lunch, etc., but you seem to spend most of the day not travelling very far forward to the river, the Eel River, mainly because you keep coming back and forwards, and several times you seem to get the wagon caught in some boggy peatness. It's not swamp. It's obviously where pools of water have been collecting, and the ground becomes very sort of like smushy, and you sort of like compress it, and you have to sort of like spend some time maneuvering yourselves around it. And you actually the sun starts to set, and you can actually see far to, it's almost like if I put roughly where you think you are, you think you're about there. Can you see that all right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not far away, you sort of like, if I put these dots on, these are sort of like where you can see hill forts. And so you're almost like in the middle of two. And as you're sort of like carrying on going towards the river that is in roughly the direction because of sun, etc., you do see up at front, and probably whoever's the outrider or walking ahead of you sees this first, and there seems to be just at the edge of your vision at the moment, there seems to be a series of what appears to be poles stuck out of the ground, and they seem to be at very strange angles, and there's only about 2, 3, 4 of them maybe, and you sort of like pick this up and slow down as if to think, what on earth is this? And it's only as you sort of like move a little bit closer that just at the edge of your vision there seems to have been some kind of battle up in front of you. The poles are definitely, now that you're a little bit closer, are definitely spears, and you can see the shape of silhouetted. You can see shapes of what appears to be mounds of, could be humanoid, could be an animal, could be anything, actually lying on the ground. You can't pick out any more detail from this position, but the wagon has come to a halt as whoever's driving it thought it would be the best idea to stop here.
I'll say, Hazra will say, just wait here while I go ahead and have a look, see what happened. I think this may be what happened last night, but I don't know. But give me a moment. Then Hazra will cut forward to see what. Sorry?
It could be a trap. They could be waiting to spring a trap as you get closer.
Well, we have to go this way anyway, by the looks of it, Gulliver. So I would rather spring a trap on me on my own than you could be prepared for whatever happens next. Why we wouldn't want the wagon to slowly meander into this trap. So I will scout ahead and just bear with me, and we'll see if they're alive or they're dead or what happened.
Before you go, Hazard, please let me pray for Amriel to protect you in the case of this trap.
If you wish. I mean,
Why didn't you take Hengist with you? I mean, we can see pretty far away in all directions, and there doesn't seem to be anything creeping up on us. And if anything attacks me and Bartleby, well,
just move the wagon towards us in that case.
Now Bartleby's sure to shout out for help. He normally does.
I do very well, thank you.
This is true. Okay, I was hoping to go quietly and sneak up there, but yes, okay, we will go with purpose. Hengist, would you like to accompany me to see what is happening ahead? What has happened ahead?
It might be an idea. Although we go with purpose, it might be an idea to be wary and keep an eye out, so they could be still hiding in the area. Well, whatever did this.
Do you say Bartleby's casting a spell?
Yes. While they continue talking, Bartleby is exclaiming and praying for Amriel to keep Hazard safe because he's not wearing a box of metal around him.
Yeah.
This is the prayer I'd like to do.
Cool.
And this is my role.
So Hazard, you now have protection on you, which will give you some, will reduce some of the damage first time you get hit. Okay then. So the two people that are going up then are Hazard and Hengist.
Yes. Yeah. Swords drawn.
Gulliver wants to, when they set up, he wants to climb up onto the back of the wagon and see whether or not he can stand up.
Yes.
And keep an eye out. He'll keep sort of like moving his head around in the various directions to make sure that there's nobody sneaking up in any of the directions, although it is pretty open.
It is.
Terrain.
Okay then. So Gulliver, if you just roll me a perception roll, which we'll keep for this encounter.
Blind rolled it, or
no, you can show me it. I trust you or your. Did you want to look it?
Yes, I will.
Okay, so that'll be 19 then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay then. So Gulliver gets up on the back of the cart and sort of like keeps a look at. Bartleby puts Amriel's blessing onto Hazra, and Hazra and Hengist. Tell me what you're doing.
I'd like to advance on the scene with my sword.
Sorry, Hazra. I'm getting dreadful feedback on your.
Yeah, it's his submarine microphone.
Yeah.
Sorry. Am I okay now?
I think it's when you move stuff on your desk.
Oh, it picks up everything. It's amazing.
Yeah. Great. So.
In a bad way. So Hazra wants to advance with Hengist with his sword drawn to the scene and while watching all around.
Okay then.
That's by the way for your mic.
Yeah, and Hengist, what are you planning on doing?
So Hengist will be a couple of steps to the side of Hazra, advancing carefully, glancing every so often around in the surroundings, but he's going to be mainly focusing on the mounds of people looking, because that's where he's thinking someone might be jumping out of. He'll have his helmet on, shield on, but his sword will be in his sheath, but his hand's going to be on the hilt ready to draw it if needed.
Okay.
But he's thinking he might need a hand free for the moment.
Okay then, so Hazra, you're moving towards with weapons drawn, and Hengist is moving towards with hand on hilt. How far do you actually want? How far away from this place are you? Are you stopping before you get there, or are you just going straight into the area? What's the plan? Before you tell me that, could you both roll perception rolls for me, please, that I've got then ready for later on. Thank you. Yeah, so, tell me exactly what you would like to do.
Hazra wants to go into the scene, but he was hoping that Hengist would stop like a 30-foot distance away, or they're a 20-foot distance away, just so we're both not in danger. If anything does happen, I can then either run back to him or he can run to me. My theory here is because I'm a lot lighter and stealthier. Let me do this in character. I think you should stay a distance away from the area because I make less noise than you do, Hengist. And with all this metal that keeps you alive, they can hear you coming. So if you stay there and stop still, I can go in there. If there is any trap, perhaps we will stop it before it happens.
So what's going to be the distance between Hazra and Hengist?
So Hengist will probably stop a few meters away from, say, 15 meters away from the furthest body or shape out of the center, if you know what I mean. So if it's kind of like does that make sense?
Yes, yeah. So you're sort of like stopping about 15 meters away from the actual thing.
Edge.
Yeah. Okay then. And then
I hear the conversation. Can he go?
Well,
down?
you can definitely see them conversing, and with the wind coming down in this direction, it's carrying the sound in any case. So probably yes, although what you actually hear is a bit sort of like different things. So Hazra will get there first. So then Hengist is stood 15 meters roughly further back. Hazra, what would you like to do when you get there?
When Hazra gets there, he wants to check. The first mound he comes to, he wants to see what that mound is. I'm assuming, he'll just look down the ground and say, what is this on the floor?
Yeah, so you as you approach closer in, just roll a 1d6 for me, please, so I can see which person you're going to come up to first. Yeah, the first person you actually come up to is obviously a person. From their garb that they're wearing, it seems to probably be a black veil barbarian. is probably, it's quite strange. They don't look like herders' garb. They look a lot more like the barbarian guard that came into the tavern a couple of nights before. He's face down. His spear is actually nowhere near him. He seems to still have his armor on, and it's now that you sort of like have a quick scout around after checking this face down body, and you can see that probably there's about 6 of them in total. They all seem to be either face up or face down or on the side. But the interesting thing is any of the poles that are stuck up are not stuck in them. They're either stuck in the ground and these definitely are some kind of long spear. And it's sort of like stuck in the ground. You as you scan round, you also see some that appear to be broken.
Could I use my, I suppose locale's wrong, well, maybe it is. If you're hunting boar, for example, as Hazard would know in the steppes, you would go with a group and they would have long spears. Well, is it more of a hunting party or?
Well, it definitely looks like they're not out for a Sunday stroll.
No.
But whether or not they were hunting or they were the hunted, you probably would have to go more into the situation and actually roll and see whether or not you can pick up any tracks. Around that.
So I'll go deeper into the area, and I'll survey the area. I'll look on the ground and see human, anything track wise.
Okay, yeah. So roll. Oh, yeah, nice one.
Oh, I'll have a point in that one, please.
Just 1 second. So you sort of like get in and you sort of like start to have a look around. You actually suddenly realise that you should have initially you just think I'll go into the middle and try to see what's there, and you suddenly get there and think, oh, I should have planned this and sort of like done it from the outside in, and you just sort of like look back and see that there's a majority of your footprints in various locations, which explains your ineptitude with your fumble roll there. You do pick up some interesting data though, or ideas. There are 6 of them. Some of them they don't have any weapons in them or anything like that. You can see from the kind of wounds that it's probably some kind of animal attack. It doesn't look like sword slashes or anything like that. And the only other thing that you do notice, which actually gives you an idea that this was not a hunting party, is that you can actually see that there's a bit of burnt ground in the middle, and you can see that there was probably some kind of fire there. And and so definitely some kind of animal attack.
Where's Bartleby at the moment?
And Bartleby's with you at the wagon.
Just out of interest.
By the side of it?
It's up to Bartleby.
Bartleby is doing a follow-up prayer of praise to Amriel for protecting Hazra in this dangerous situation.
So he's probably by the side of the wagon. He probably wouldn't pray inside the wagon. So Hengist, what you can see now that Hazra's in the front and he's sort of like bobbing down now and again, what would you like to do?
So Hengist is now going to sort of like make his way slowly and carefully towards Hazra and the display of bodies, and he'll get to the edge and he'll start sort of like having a cursory glance around, and then call to Hazra. what have you found? What do you think?
It's very strange, Angus, my friend. It looks like these people were attacked by something. The wounds on them are more animal than anything else. They're not weapon wounds. But the strange thing is there's fire. There's scorched marks of fire on the ground as well, which I cannot explain.
Perhaps they camped here, were set upon.
It doesn't look like a campfire because there would be tinder and wood there, but this is just scorched. So it's just like somebody has thrown a torch over it and then removed the torch.
Have you found any sign of the creature still being here, or?
I've seen nothing so far of any creature. Just these people who are dead. And while I was doing that, do any of these people have any short spears on them, or are they all long spears by any chance?
They all seem to appear to be long spears.
Yeah.
Hengist will say, I will go over to the crest and signal for Bartleby and Gulliver to join us then.
Okay then.
We
so
should
let's
make our way. So Hengist will then turn, go to the edge, and then sort of like start waving until one of them gets one of their attention. Then he'll just like do a come here motion with his right hand.
So let's zoom back to Gulliver and Bartleby. Gulliver,
So
you will have some time because this has been going on.
Okay, so as soon as Gulliver sees what he sees, Bartleby, what are you doing?
I'm praising Amriel, Gulliver, for delivering the gift of protection upon Hazra.
Well, praise her on the wagon. We need to get going. There's people approaching from the fort.
But people what?
Yeah, get on the wagon.
I'll climb onto the wagon and try and get a look at where he's talking about.
Oh yeah, roll a perception roll.
Pow.
Yeah, you can see coming down from the north eastern dot. There's definitely seems to be a group of individuals coming down. Gully, you're now. Right, is the plan that you're going to?
So as soon as Bartleby's on the wagon, Gulliver's going to sit down at the driving seat and he's going to pick up the reins and try to get the beast of burden. I believe it's a mule.
Yes.
We're moving at fastest speed possible over the terrain that he can.
Nice.
And he's going to say to Bartleby as they get moving, Bartleby, when we get closer, give the warning sound.
The warning sound? Okay, I'll give that to Hazra and Hengist.
Yes.
Okay then. So let's. If Gulliver, you would like to roll your drive, because this is like a chariot or a wagon, so you can roll that.
Oh, and as per usual, he pulls it out the bag with his horsemanship.
So all of a sudden, Bartleby, you sort of like get on the wagon, and all of a sudden, Gulliver seems to go yeah like this, and this mule, who's been quite stubborn, for almost like obviously takes a liking to Gulliver's drivemanship, and without much fuss at all, not even a yank on the reins or the harness, he immediately sort of like sets off towards the camp. And yes, Bartleby, you can see there seems to be a group of barbarians. There seem to be somewhere between 6 and 8. It's really difficult to see, but they are approaching at speed. Hengist, you look round, ready to signal the cart towards you. And as you look around and you sort of like turn around and go, you suddenly see that Gulliver's in the driving seat of the wagon, and this mule is sort of going, not at a fast pace, but at quite a leisurely pace.
Bartleby, give the warning.
Look out, there's an animal approaching.
I thought it was meant to be a hoot of an
Hengist
owl.
will half turn.
Run away!
Are you sure?
Hengist will half turn to Hazra
I
and
thought
say,
it was one of those streamlined telephones that we used to have.
he'll say, Barsabi's making an odd noise, and I think he's trying to be a cat. But he's coming this way anyway.
The thing is,
Well, that is good if they're coming.
several.
If they're coming this way, that's very good. I mean, we asked them to stay where they were, but they must be urgently wanting to see what we're looking at.
Gulliver's driving the cart, and that mule seems to be being behaved, and actually seems to be coming at
You're
faster
being
pace than normal.
foolish. Hengist, you're being foolish. That mule has never been behaved when we got.
Yeah, and you look
I
up
think you need to have a look,
You,
Hazra.
you look up Hazra, and it is. Hengist,
my.
can you roll your? I think you have a strategy skill.
I have a strategy skill, yes.
Yeah, you sort of like look up, and you sort
Can
of
I
like.
use the point of look?
Yes, you
One
can
and
do.
only to.
If you
detect
wish, just before combat, yeah.
it. He will.
Yeah, so you look up and you figure that using a quick strategy, you figure that the wagon will get here before the group of people, the barbarians we'll call them, that you sort of like see Bartleby making an owl call or a cat call and then pointing, and you all sort of like look and you can see these people approaching. They're on foot, they're carrying long spears and in a horizontal manner. Obviously to aid with this running. They seemed very intent, and quickly using your success on your strategy roll is that you suddenly realise that the wagon will get to you before the people, the barbarians, do. However, you don't feel that there would be enough time to escape this area before the barbarians actually are on you. Hazra, you now see everything. The mule seems to be completely well behaved, and Gulliver is some you all know the legendary wagon rider called Ben Hur, and you
Can I stand up?
Just on two wheels.
if you had got a critical, I would have let you, but yeah. So, but you do see that this wagon is coming at quite a pace, and then you sort of like follow Hengist's eyes and notice that there's a group of 6, maybe 8 barbarians jogging at they're not running, they're jogging at quite a hefty speed towards the
Fastest
area.
speed in the wagon, aren't they? So
Yeah.
Your mic's gone back into submarine mode again.
sorry, that was me moving something.
Okay. So Hazra and Hengist, you'll probably be the first ones to actually act now, because Gulliver, you're frantically whipping the reins. And what's the mule called, by the way?
We didn't give it a name. We haven't had a chance to name it.
It's not our mule, it's something borrowed, so we
I'm
can't name it.
going to name it now, though. I'm going to call it Whippet.
Okay, so you're whipping. This is going to be difficult now. You're whipping Whippet to encourage her to sort of like move on, and she gives you some nasty looks. As if to say, I'm doing the best I can, I'm only a mule.
Can I use a whittled reed to whip it?
Yeah. Bartleby, can you just make an athletics roll for me, please?
Can do. Could I use a point of luck?
Yes, you can do, by all means. Yeah, so you sort of like get on board and the wagon goes shooting off, and you sort of like totter for a while, but suddenly manage to sort of like ready yourself and brace yourself and you sort of like assume a position that is quite sort of like crouched down, holding onto something to prevent you actually tumbling out of the wagon. Hazra and Hengist, what would you like to do? You'll be able to act first.
Hengist is going to say to Hazra, we need to get ready to maybe defend ourselves. The wagon will make it before the barbarians, but the barbarians will be on us before we can leave the scene. It's
Yeah, so you turn to
Find somewhere
Hazra.
slightly better to stand.
Yeah, so you, with Wagon approaching, Barbarians approaching, you turn around and have this conversation with Hazra. Yeah, Hazra, how would you like to reply?
I agree, Hengist. We need to find a place to defend ourselves that's close by. Is there anywhere here, maybe a mound of bodies we can put in our back?
So, Gulliver and Bartleby, you're sort of like charging towards this camp, and you can actually see that Hazra and Hengist are sort of like having this discussion, and there's barbarians coming from one direction, and you're charging, and they're sort of like talking and maybe gesturing slightly about what should we actually do here, and you sort of like are coming into the camp.
With the wind whipping in his red hair.
Yeah, it's sort of like all whooshing past. So,
they'll jump on the wagon as they come past.
say again, sorry.
He's going to say to Bartleby, "Do you think they'll jump on the wagon as I ride past?"
Probably step on it going that slow.
Yeah, so Gulliver shouts this at you, Bartleby, as his red hair's whipping in the wind, as he whip it ever faster. Gulliver, you're going to have to make a decision. Are you going to do one of three things? Each will require a roll, just so you know. Would you like to stop the wagon, plough through the dead bodies, etc., but keep going? Or would you like to keep going but try to do circumvent around the conversationalists?
Am I allowed to ask a question to Bartleby as we're riding, and then make the decision at the last minute?
Yeah, but you
Okay,
will make the decision before Hazra and Hengist get to act.
Okay, so as he's doing, he's not being able to look around because he's watching. He's watching the ground ahead of him to try to make sure that he doesn't get the wheel caught in a rut or whatever. And he's going to say to Bartleby, "Are they gaining on us, Bartleby? Are they gaining?"
I'll try and assess if they're gaining on us. My eyes and my
Yeah, roll your perception roll.
panic roll.
You sort of like you look over and you sort of like says, "Yes, they're getting closer."
They're breathing down our neck.
Gulliver, what's your?
Going to make the decision.
I'll just tell you your choices once more. Okay, so you go into the camp and you stop. You're traveling at quite a speed, so that will just be a stop roll. But you won't. You might upturn the cart, or you might knock Hengist and Hazra over, but you're stopping. You can plough through it, straight through without stopping. But you are going through dead bodies, etc., and Hazra and Hengist, or you can try to swerve the wagon to either the left or the right of the camp. The right is where the barbarians are coming down from, just so you know. You can swerve it and almost like go round the camp and carry on without stopping.
So there's Gulliver, with Bartleby saying that they're gaining on us, he now knows that Whippet, despite his best efforts, are not going to be able to outrun the pursuers, especially.
Do you think this mule has one of those straw hats on with its ears sticking out?
It's got a daisy chain that made for the last time.
Especially once we've got both Hengist and Hazra on board as well. He probably won't be able to move all that quick. So Gulliver makes the decision to bring the cart into the camp and stop.
Okay then. First things first, you're going to sort of like head straight into the camp. I'm going to ask Hengist and Hazra to actually make an evade roll in a second. So first things first, in you go. And the first thing you need, quite obviously, is a drive check to actually bring the Whippet and the wagon to a halt. Yeah, and you sort of like bring it in. Would you like to use a luck on that? If you,
I'm not going to go for the.
it would give you a critical.
I'm not going to go for the critical. I'm gonna trust in my animal handling and.
Okay, so you sort of like this charging mule in the wagon. You sort of like bring it into the camp. Okay, invade rolls from Hengist and Hazra, please. Okay, so Hengist, you suddenly, using your tactical mind, suddenly realise what Gulliver's going to do as he brings the wagon into the camp, and you sort of like make sure that you sort of like get out the way as he plows in. Hazra, you also see this, but it almost like dawns on you at the last moment that it's going to happen, and you sort of like, rather than stepping out the way like tactical minded Hengist did, you just think, holy cow, and just sort of like launch yourself out the way, and this wagon comes in between you, and you sort of like pull up the reins as sharply as you can, and Whippet lets out almost like a braying sound of contentment as you yank the reins, and the bit sort of like goes into his mouth. Bartleby, just roll an athletics check for me, please. I was going to say it's easy. Do you wish to use a point of luck?
I think I'm going to burn through a point of luck there.
Okay then, so you sort of like, the wagon suddenly comes to a halt, but luckily you suddenly got some kind of insight into what Gulliver was doing, and you managed to brace yourself. So currently how the situation is, and I'm just going to build up, hi Darth, I'm just going to move you. You should be able to see that now.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to put you all on. It's just that I didn't know exactly when you would be reaching here. I've got some stones here. Just to let you know, those stones just consider as small hillocks, just to sort of like give the general feel of it. So let's get you on, and I'm going to sort of like put you on in sort of like steps, just so you know. So Hazra, sorry, I've just put you on the wrong layer, which is no point at all. So come on, Hazra. I should be able to see Hazra.
You see Hazra.
And Hengist.
Giant Hengist.
There you go. Let's put you at the right size. So I'm just going to ping the map. So this is where the barbarians are coming from. I do have a wagon. I just need to find it.
I wanted to know why Gulliver didn't deploy the carrot.
I think the wagon needs to be a bit bigger. Oh, it's looking good now.
It's got beer on it.
So this is where you've stopped, and then Bartleby. Sorry, that's another Hazra. Sorry.
That's my known-as twin brother.
Bartleby, you're actually on the cart, and so is Gulliver. Can you just check to make sure that you can move your characters?
No, can't move mine yet.
Okay.
I cannot.
Nope.
Not a problem. Let me just sort that for you.
I'm good.
Okay, Gulliver, you
On him.
should be
On him.
fine now. Hengist should be fine.
Yep.
Bartleby's a lot easier to do because your name starts with a B. No. There you are. And that should be everybody in action. Yeah. Okay then. So we'll pick it up from there. Hazra, you managed to get out the way, but you will need to get up. But the combat hasn't started yet. You and Gulliver and Bartleby, you're in the wagon. You're at the front of it, next to the mule, and Bartleby, you're in the back of it, and Hengist, you're to one side, where the barbarians will be approaching. Let me just while you so what would you like to do?
Hazra's going to stand up and see where they're coming from and then move towards Hengist.
Cool, yeah, so you can move your way there, that's not a problem. And what would anybody else like to do?
Is Gulliver within arm's reach?
Yeah.
I'd like to put my hand on him and pray for his protection against these vicious barbarians.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
As always, there's that, and here's the roll. Wow.
So I think because it's a folk magic
point.
yeah,
No magic point.
you don't lose any magic point because it's a crit off a roll.
Yeah.
So I know. Sorry, let me just make sure. So I know that Hazra has protection on him, and does Gulliver? Was it protection that you put onto Gulliver?
Correct.
Yeah. Right. Okay then. Yeah.
So if there's still time, Hengist is going to take a couple of steps forwards and to his right, so he's got Gulliver and Bartleby behind his back.
Okay, let's roll initiative then. Gulliver.
Can Gulliver take whatever moments he has to make a tactical perception? There's obviously dead bodies in here. Are they dressed the same way as the people that are coming towards us?
Right, yeah. Roll your perception. Yeah, nice roll. Yeah,
Very much.
Most definitely. And they are getting closer and closer and closer. They're about to come onto the map. So I think the best thing to do is for people to roll some initiatives for me.
Can't find my initiative. Wait. Boom.
I had the same problem. Where's it gone?
Both the same, I think. Oh, no. Yes, I think we're both the same. What's your...
No, mine's 11. I think I beat you.
Oh, right, yeah. Mine's 12.
Oh, yours 12. You beat me.
Okay, so let me just reorder. I'm going to use all the same... Gulliver, do you say you're first?
I believe so, yeah. I've got 12.
I'm 11.
Okay then, so that's the initiative order. The barbarians are trotting towards those spears, are leveled out horizontal, and they're about to come onto your map. And I think we'll take our break there since it's 8:30. And we'll come back in about 10 minutes. So if you're watching the stream, we're going to have a quick 10-minute break. So make sure you go off and get some snacks, something to eat, etc. And do come back for the second half when we'll find out whether or not the party can stand alone against this screaming demon horde of barbarians and what might actually happen. And will Gulliver actually get the most out of Whippet the Mule than anybody else? Okay, so please do come back in 10 minutes and we will see you then. I will do that to get you live, and then I'll do that and see how it goes. Okay, guys. Yes.
Mic on.
Yeah, it's on. Yes, we are back, and welcome back. I hope you managed to get. I've got a toffee nut latte, which is lovely, and yeah, welcome back. We left the party in after some wonderful driving by Gulliver and protection spells by Bartleby, and we found the group in the middle of a scene of devastation. With a whole load of dead barbarians, when a troop of barbarians is coming towards them, and at the last point there, we rolled in initiative. So I'm just going to pop you over onto the other map. There you go. Just make this a little bit bigger so you can see it like that, and then we've got everything on. Yeah, so cool. So I'm just going to shrink you down a bit because I've just made my map miles bigger, and you're like giants at the moment. You should all sort of like fit onto
We fit
one.
on the cart a lot better now. Me.
Yeah. You're sort of like all on one square. You should be the size of a square. Okay, yes. So Gulliver, you will be going first. Tell me, what would you like to do?
Okay, so Gulliver wants to be jumping down off the wagon, and then depending on how far he can move, he wants to. They're coming from this direction, are they?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, he wants to move to about there with his hands up, showing that he carries no weapons.
Right. Just 1 second, so I can get. Is the
I don't know. Let me have a look. See. It's in feet at the moment. Do we normally work in feet?
No.
We normally work in meters.
Oh, hang on a minute. Okay. Try it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
5 meters. Yeah. Yeah. So yes, you can move there. That's not an issue. So move yourself up. Can you move it?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
He wants to.
With your hands up, did you say?
Yes. So
Yeah.
just showing that hands and palms open so that they can see that he's not carrying any weapons.
Okay then. Hazra, you're up. So you see Gulliver doing this. So.
Hazra will.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
So you're
Quiet.
You're quiet, mate.
Oh, sorry. Give me 2 shakes.
2 shakes are up.
Can't hear you at all now. You're muted in Zoom at the moment.
He might be testing to make sure he's got the volume or something.
Okay, try now.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's better.
Fantastic, thank you. Hazra seen Gulliver walk forward with his hands in the air and realising he's got his sword in his hand, he will. And also seen the 6 barbarians chasing down on them, he'll sheath his scimitar.
Was that a sonar ping then? I'm sure I heard a sonar ping.
He'll sheath his scimitar and then again put his hands in the air and say, "This had nothing to do with us."
Okay then. So that's 18. Bartleby, you're on 16.
I think Bartleby is just going to hang back here and just be in the cart, not raising his hands or anything, but not drawing any weapons.
Okay then. So you're dithering, yeah?
Pretty much, I guess.
Okay then. And the barbarians come on next. Just to let you know, they stop just off the corner of your map. So they're literally about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meters away from Gulliver. And what they do is that as they get to that part, they start to pace themselves out. So they sort of like people at the front sort of like stop where they are, and then they sort of like start to spread round. So you imagine now that they're almost like a semicircle around you guys. I'll put them on so you can actually see them. So imagine that. So this is where these will be coming on. And then there's one more down here. And then up the other way. There's like that. So can you see all those? All right. Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
5, 7 of them.
Yeah. So yeah, they sort of like spread themselves out. Hengist, you're up.
Okay. Hengist. Hengist is going to stay where he is, and he's going to be sort of like just tactically observe the situation. So he's not drawing his sword or anything. He's just going to keep a watch on all of them.
Nothing else.
Nothing else at the moment.
Okay then. So you sort of like people either sheathe their weapons or put their hands up or dither in place, and the it will come back up to you, Gulliver, on turn 2, second turn round.
Okay, so Gulliver wants to start to speak. He wants to say.
Just before you go, are you using any particular skill to speak with?
Yeah. So he's going to raise his voice enough so that people can hear him. He's going to try to sound as firm as he can. Cause sometimes it comes out a bit squeaky, you know, when you get and you think you're going to say something and it comes like it comes out like Beaker
from the Muppet Show.
He's going to try to influence the Barbarians by
to do what? Yeah.
telling them things that they know, which should help them determine that what has happened in the camp is nothing to do with us.
Okay, then. So you're going to try to influence them to make.
Yeah. So he's going to say. He's going to say.
Are you using your influence skill, or do you have an oratory skill as well?
No, he's going to just try to use his influence skill.
Okay then.
He doesn't have oratory at all.
So tell me what role play what you're going to say to them, and then we can roll.
Okay, so he's going to, as I say, he's going to raise his voice so that it's not angered or sounds like he's giving orders, but he's going to say, "You know, this has nothing to do with us. You've been watching us. You've seen from the fort that we were just traveling this way. We saw what's happened here, and 2 of us went to investigate."
Yeah, roll away.
I need a world influence then.
That's what you.
Yes, it is influence. That
Yeah.
well, I'm going to keep it at that. I'm not re-rolling.
So the main guy who is this one, I'll just put a coloured dot on him so you can see him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that? He sort of like looks at you. So just for people who are watching, what we did there, we did what's known as an opposed roll. So Gulliver rolled his influence, and I rolled my willpower, or my influence, or my deceit to try to see whether or not he had effect. So I actually failed in my standard roll, but Gulliver actually won with a very good roll, because 59 out of 61 is a very good roll. And you sort of like explain this to him, and you notice that he's sort of like looking around, and he seems to be looking almost like beyond you, Gulliver, at the situation, and then sort of like looking back, and he sort of like has a careful look at each of you in turn, and sort of like almost like eyes you up in some kind of probably nice roll of a 9 for his perception. Actually sort of like looks around and sort of like thinks he's definitely doing some kind of strategic sizing up of you, and then he sort of like brings his long spear upright and sort of like keeping it to one side, so he's obviously not trying not to be threatening, but he's not prepared to release it. He sort of like takes 2 steps towards you, and he sort of like looks at you, and he sort of like starts off with you, looks around the camp, looks at each of the people of your party member, and then comes back to you and says, "Who are you?"
We're prospectors. We're heading towards the mountains. Whatever happened here happened last night. We heard sounds whilst we were camping.
He sort of like
but a day's travel.
He sort of like looks over at Hengist, and he doesn't actually talk to you, Gulliver. He's looking at Hengist when he says this, but you're obviously the person that he's addressing the conversation to you, and he says, "He doesn't look like a miner."
No, the roads are dangerous, and me and my uncle, and he'll look round and towards Bartleby.
Oh, Uncle Bart.
We're told that the journey was dangerous, and we should make sure that we had guards. So
when you mention the word dangerous, you notice that there's a slight grunt off to the Barbarian straight north of you at the moment, and the leader sort of like shoots him a quick glance, and he's just sort of like relaxes somewhat, as if some non-verbal cue has been sort of like presented to him.
These henchmen here were picked up in Norport from Hanno's place, I believe it was called.
He sort of like looks back at you, Gulliver, and says, "Who's the strange man with the iron mask?"
My uncle. He was burnt horribly in a straw bale fire.
Good thinking there. You could have come up with anything more dramatic. He stood alone against a fire-breathing dragon. He got caught in a straw bale fire.
I was trying to rescue the family pig.
He sort of like
lost part of his face, and his hands were burned so bad that he could now, well, he can't even pull another. So it was decided that we would seek our fortune, and we heard of gold in the mountains, which is where we now go. We sold the farm, and the money that we got, we managed to get together this cart and our steed, and hire these 2 henchmen.
He sort of like looks at you, and when you mention the mountains, he sort of like almost like glances over his shoulders because it's at the back of him, and he sort of like looks at you again and says, "You are in our grounds. This land belongs to us."
We're merely passing through. We haven't taken anything or destroyed anything.
And when you say destroy anything, he sort of like looks at the dead bodies and he says, "These are my king folk."
But surely you saw that we came to see whether or not they were all right. My uncle here, although he's badly burnt,
Bartleby, you keep every time Gulliver says "my uncle here," you go, "Oh," it's like as if there's somebody behind you. They go, "Oh no, it's yeah."
He does possess healing skills, and we sent the henchman on ahead to check, and it was our intention to, if anybody needed help, to offer what help we could, of course. Surely you saw from your fort.
He seems to pause for a moment, as if he's almost like trying to line up, try to understand what you're talking about, and trying to succeed in a deceit roll to see whether or not you're an insight roll. Sorry, to see whether or not you're actually pulling his leg, and he sort of like looks for a while, and then he says, "Get your henchmen and your uncle to stand down and stand in front of the wagon so we can collect our fallen."
Yes, of course. And Gulliver will turn around and he'll motion to Hengist and Hazra and say, in almost like a nondescript way, "You two, stand over by the wagon," as if he's giving an order to subordinates.
Azra will say, "Yes, sir," and he'll move. So I can't move. I've lost control of my character.
There you go.
Yep.
Angus won't say anything. He'll just like walk to stand by the wagon.
The guy looks across at Bartleby as well, and he's obviously wanting Bartleby to join.
I'll join next to Hengist.
And Gulliver?
Gulliver, he'll just back up to over here.
Yeah, and you
He'll back up to the side there, and then it's in a line. And then if you need to throw stuff at us,
I can just get a long spear and just kebab you all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once this happens, once you're in position, you notice that the barbarian, the speaker, comes in slightly more, but only always keeping some kind of distance between you, and he sort of like comes more centrally, and then the other sort of like people, the other barbarians, come into the circle, and they start to check bodies, and you notice that one Bartleby comes almost right up to you, and you're sort of like looking at him out at the corner of your tin mask, and he comes really close, but at the last moment he sort of like bends down and he keeps his eyes on you, and then he seems to be checking the ground, and then you notice that he moves further over to one side, and then you notice that he sort of like goes right the way round, and he comes back to the barbarian leader, Could you make perception rolls just for Gulliver and Hazra? Because you're on the side.
Yeah. Can I try to... Oh, get in there. Can I try to engage in conversation again?
Once you hear this, you see the barbarian almost like go next to him, and he doesn't quite whisper in his ear, but he gets very close, and he actually does that thing that he actually turns his mouth away from you people. So he's talking to the barbarian next to him, but he's literally facing the other way. So it would be really difficult to even lip read what he says. And he sort of like whispers something, and he seems to be. It seems to be, the sentence that seems to come out is just. It just says. It was the Zuk-Tuk.
Okay. Can I go?
Yeah, go.
So, Gulliver, when the barbarians are going round, he's going to say, "What happened here? The whatever happened? It seemed very one-sided. Because the only dead seem to be your men."
He sort of like keeps an eye on you, Gulliver. You hear this Zuk-Tuk. Hazra, you don't hear it. And he sort of like is thinking for a while. And then he turns to you and says, and you can almost like hear his brain ticking over. And he says, "You are on our land. I will give you safe passage. However, there is a deed I wish you to complete. What says you?"
Perhaps we should discuss it back at the fort. Your fort. We have a wagon, which we can help carry your dead back there.
Just roll. I'm Gulliver and Hazard because you're on this side still. Roll insight checks.
Certainly.
Yeah. Hazard, you see the second guy, not the leader guy. He seems to be tense. He seems to tense up. And Gulliver, you actually hear some of the conversation, and they seem to be talking in common, but he's saying things like, "Don't be a fool. Why would you bring them back? We can deal with this." And the guy, the leader, just turns to him and just sort of like almost quite domineering, just says, "Silence. I am in charge here, not you."
Just out of interest, their accents. I'm thinking back to the so-called scholars, and we've heard their accent several times described. Does it sound like?
No, no. The accent sounds a lot more like the barbarian that you slayed.
Right, that's okay.
Slayed in the tavern.
Woof.
And he sort of like says, "Sorry, I am in charge here." And he sort of like says, "We will need your wagon to carry our dead."
Agreed.
And as if once you say agreed, you notice that the leader sort of like clicks his fingers, and points to the wagon, and people sort of like start bringing in these bodies. Bart, does anybody have any sort of like medicine, first aidy sort of like role?
I mean, first aid is a standard skill.
Yeah.
I have first aid, which is quite good.
I have healing.
Yeah, healing I do as well. So, yeah, so has a roll first aid and yeah, and you and Bartleby, you can roll healing as well. Hazard, you've seen these before, and as they sort of like pull things past you, you definitely can see that it's some kind of beast. And Bartleby, you see this for the first time, and it looks like some kind of heavy swipe mark, some kind of claw going across the bodies. You can also see that one of the men that they bring by seems to have not the majority of his throat and almost like upper chest has been sort of like ripped and ragged, as almost as if something has grabbed it and mauled it or shook it or just grabbed it and then brought it out. But the blood has congealed. You figure roughly it's about right. This probably ties in with the previous night's sounds that you hear. Once all the bodies are on the wagon, the leader says, "We walk, no one rides." And you obviously realise, Gulliver, well, every one of you realise that this is not because of hardship or anything like that. It is that he actually recognises that if anybody was on the cart, they would have driving it, they would have an unfair advantage, but also that their dead are actually in the cart. Are you happy to go along?
Gulliver will turn to Hazra and he'll say, "You lead the mule."
I will do as you say, Master.
Gulliver's going to try to walk as we head over there. He's going to try to walk next to Bartleby.
Yeah. So you.
And given a chance, he's going to whisper. He's going to say, "I told him you were my uncle."
I heard. I hope you don't actually believe that, Gulliver. Because I'm not your uncle. You know that, right?
I know. Right, we're done.
Okay, so as you sort of like, I'm just trying to pick up Hengist. As you sort of like set out, the guard, the leader, walks at the front. The rest of them sort of like keep roughly at the same distance as they are now, but down the side. And the guy who was talking to the leader stands behind you, so they're almost like this.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's so you are quite effectively protected. You're definitely in the middle, and you're
Surrounded.
not. But you're not too sure whether or not they are protecting or guarding against you, or whether or not they're actually guarding the wagon because it carries their dead. And you sort of like walk and walk and walk, and you can see that they're taking you to the nearby fort. And as you get there, you notice, it's getting dusk now, and there are fires being lit. And as you get closer and closer, you notice that runners see you coming, and they sort of like dive into the hill fort. And then by the time you get there, there's quite a gathering. When I say gathering, there's probably about 12. It doesn't look like there's sort of like teenage boys there and older women, and there's some children, and you figure the whole of this sort of like family consists. These are probably the main warriors plus the dead that's in the wagon. And various sort of like women come out and sort of like join you, and sort of like you, Bartleby and Gulliver, you sort of like step back as women sort of like search the faces, the dead in the wagons, and then suddenly let out howls of anguish and start to weep. And other women sort of like pull them away, and it becomes almost like a funeral procession as you get closer and closer to the entrance. And there's almost like a curved ramp that goes up to the gate that you think originally horses might, or wagons will have been rode or driven down. And as you sort of like walk up, almost like behind you, Gulliver and Bartleby, you've almost like got this throng of wailing and crying women and children as they recognize that the contents of your wagon is now their loved ones that have been brutally killed out in the wilderness. And eventually you enter the stone fort, and it's literally just the outside of the walls. There's no other structure in there at all, but there are a series of makeshift tents that are held up by pieces of hemp rope and things like that. There's quite a substantial fire in the middle, and as soon as you sort of like pull in and you sort of like step back, and the men start to lift the bodies from the wagon and sort of like lie them down, and what appears to be, you think it's probably some kind of shaman or maybe some kind of theist, Bartleby, you're not too sure, but you recognize by the actions, but less so by the words that appear to be completely foreign to you, that there's some kind of religious rite going on as rattly sticks and pieces of water are flicked and shook over the dead bodies, and quite miraculously they actually lie them up, face up, or in a line, and they carefully, if they still can, cross the arms over the person's body. And if they had brought any, because they picked up spears as well, these are then laid over them as if they're sort of like still clutching them, preparing them for some kind of spiritual afterlife. And eventually the leader guy comes over to you all, and you notice that he's ordered for some food to be brought out for Whippet the mule, and he sort of like signals you over, and he takes you into a tent that appears to be quite substantial, and it's only when you get in there that you notice that there's a wife in there, some teenage children and some younger children as well. And he sort of like turns round to the woman, who obviously seems very pleased and passionate that he's back, and he just sort of like turns to her and says, "Leave us." And she doesn't even flinch. She just brings the children together and sort of like moves them out the tent. And you sort of like all sort of like stand there thinking, what on earth is happening? And the leader sort of like has his back to you, and he seems to be looking at some kind of makeshift, almost like an altar. It just seems to be a whole load of equipment piled up. And without turning to you guys, he sort of like talks to you, and he says, "You are traveling to the mountains. Is that correct?"
Yes. We're going to see what riches we can find.
Some of your kind passed through here some weeks ago. They had substantial mercenary force with them and quite a lot of wagons and miners like you. They were headed to the Black Mountains, the Black Veil Mountains. Is there something there that I should know of?
Not that I was aware of. This is the first time we've heard of another expedition. You say it was large?
Yes.
This doesn't bode well for us then. As you can see, it is only my uncle and our 2 guards.
Much
Chances of us finding much when we get there is, but we have to try, because everything that we have is invested in this expedition.
There were 5 wagons similar to you, each with 2 riders at the front. Then there were mercenaries armoured, and he turns round and says, like your mercenaries, your mercenary here, and he sort of like signals at Hengist. Are you all going to the same place? Is there something that you need to share with us?
There is nothing I can tell you. You did mention a trade of some sorts, though. Safe passage.
The
in
beast.
return for
The beast who killed my kinfolk. We wish you to slay it. And for this, we will escort you to the area where the people before you went, since I strongly believe that you travel to the same place.
I cannot say. I do not know where they've gone.
You need just kill the beast. My men are somewhat superstitious. They think the beast is possessed. They say evil spirits live within it, power it, allows it to summon great strength. After the recent attack, I know I will not be able to convince any of them to go near, but we cannot allow the Zultuk to live on. And it seems fair that we come to an arrangement. You can lead your protectors, and he looks at Hengist and Hazra, to the lair of this beast and slay it, and in return we will take you and your wagon and your mule to the mouth of to the place where the Eel River comes out of the Black Veil Mountains, for it is there where your comrades, fellow prospectors, went with their much larger force.
What is this beast we are looking for? What type of animal is it?
It is a beast that is possessed with the evil spirits of the dead. It is powerful. It can take many forms, from a running wolf to a soaring eagle, to the great power of a giant cat, or the stubbornness, the steadfastness of the grizzly. It has been said it is all these things and none of these things. It is said it can tear a man in half. It is said it can approach silently without a sound and kill a whole tribe before anyone even winks or stirs in its sleep.
Such a
As
thing.
he's talking, can I make an insight roll to see whether or not this is something that he believes in himself, or whether or not he's just
Okay, yeah, no worries. Well,
reciting almost like a folk tale.
yeah. You figure that it's probably a mixture of both. He seems to be retelling what he's heard. It could be rumours or stories around the campfire. He sort of like does let on in the conversation that it becomes obvious that he's never met it or seen it. But he does let on that in some time ago, and you get this impression that this beast has been terrorizing the plains for some time, that they did actually find its lair on the edge of the mountains, but nobody dared to venture in. And he sort of like turns around to you as he sort of like completes giving you this information, and he says, I will leave you to discuss it with your colleagues, your mercenaries. Please.
I think Hazra might have had something to ask as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, such a thing should be killed anyway, because it would be a ruination to all the other forts, no matter who they are. If it happened in the steppes, we would all band together as one and unite and fight this thing till it was gone.
We do not band together. The days of a unified tribe has long since disappeared into the books of history.
That is such a shame. But we will help you no matter. We would do it for free rather than...
Yeah, he sort of like holds up his hand and says, I will come back when the sun sinks behind the mountains, and you will give me your answer. You can have time to discuss this, but please remember, the guards are outside my tent. Do not steal, and do not try anything, because if you do, there will be no second chances.
I have a question.
Speak quickly.
Has anybody ever faced the beast and lived to tell the tale?
And he sort of like walks to the flap of the tent, and you suddenly think he's not going to answer, and then he turns around and he looks you straight in the eye, and he just says, never. And he turns and lets the flap of the tent flutter close, leaving all four of you within the tent.
Could I roll my...
To Bartleby and say, you know what it is, don't you, Bartleby? You must do. You didn't ask anything. You already know what it is. What do we face?
It is a goblin!
Goblins take many forms, and I'd like to roll lore monsters if I can to see if I know of any stories similar to that.
Yes. The Zugtuk is a creature of myth. It is said to be almost of the were variety, like a werewolf, or in this case, it was rumored to exist, of being what you would recognize as almost like a werebear. The stories are told of it, how it ransacks caravans and tents out in the wilderness. You sort of like remember seeing images of it. That seems to be a huge bear that stands up on its hind legs and almost like whacks people. There's one of those great illustrations when this bear sort of like towers up above them and they've all got spears, and it just like backhands a whole load of them. Those people are all crumpled and misfigured, are misshapen, down on the floor. And the bear is there with the full moon behind them, shining down. As far as you know, Bartleby, it only has ever been told as a myth, but you're not too sure, because you're not from around here.
Well, and goblins were but a myth, and we saw those as well.
That is true.
I share all that information after Gulliver has prodded Bartleby for the truth.
How do we kill it?
Well, it's a myth, Gulliver. There's no myths of it being killed.
You
There's
say
no stories of its death.
Not being funny, Uncle.
I don't believe in fairies. I don't.
But the myth killed a whole band of these barbarians.
Could just be a bear.
Could simply be, as Bartleby says, a bear or some other sort of large predatory animal, which should be easy enough to deal with.
Oh, well, we'll stay in the camp then, and just you can go. It killed 8 barbarians.
I agree. These barbarians are not soft. They remind me of my guards from my clan, and for a simple bear to take out 8 of them, with long spears.
And Hazra and Bartleby, you know from the wounds that you saw with your first aid and healing rolls that it wasn't a normal bear or normal animal that did this. Whatever it was, just by the pure slash marks across the body, the gap in between the slash marks, it was almost like a Wolverine scratch mark rather than a mountain cat or anything like that.
This thing, no matter what, even if we did need safe passage, this thing needs to be taken care of for any of the travellers in this area. It sounds like an abomination that needs to be destroyed.
Agreed.
I agree, Hazra.
We don't seem to have much choice.
But I think we do need to be careful when we're in with the barbarians. I've tried to weave a tale that both, I know you're not, of course, but both you and Hengist are henchmen, and well, Bartleby's my uncle. Let's call him Uncle Rufus. But I think it's important that when we're in with the barbarians and they're talking and we're communicating with them, that we try to keep up the ruse that we've got.
I agree, but why change his name to Rufus? Just keep it as Bartleby. There's no reason for changing up the name. And if one of us makes a mistake and calls him Bartleby, then the ruse is up.
No, but we won't, because, well, Auntie Jack always said that for a story to be believable, it had to be altered in some way. Let's call him Rufus. You can remember Rufus. You call him Sir.
I just call you all sir, like I was doing. I heard your tale, and I agree with it. It's very, very good. That's why you are so wise, Gulliver. But yes, we will just call you sir or master, because you are paying us to do this for you.
Can Gulliver go and have a look at this altar or whatever it was that he was seemed to be hovering in front of?
Yeah, it just seems to be a pile of items. You don't think it's anything.
Is there sort of like a mixed match of it? Does it look like maybe it's been taken from?
Yeah, it seems to be more almost like maybe a shield of his father, some dying flowers in a pot.
So it's not something that maybe he's been ransacking caravans and just bringing.
No, it definitely seems, and it's far too neat for that. It seems to be the way they're placed. It seems very personal.
Referential.
Very personal items, and it seems to be sort of like put together as if it's a place for remembrance. It's as if each of the little items have some kind of memory attached with them.
Yeah. I think the best thing is to probably try to get as much sleep as we can then. I think we're pretty safe in here, and well, we can't go anywhere anyway because there's guards outside, so we might as well try to get as much rest as possible till tomorrow.
I agree. I do not think he has any ill will against us at the moment. So let us rest.
So the plan is that we're going to try to get some sleep on the thing that tomorrow when we talk to him we'll accept the We'll accept the mission in return for safe passage to the mouth of the not the mouth of the river, to the source of the river.
Yeah. Okay then. So then he sort of like seems rather pleased, but not outwardly. He doesn't smile or clap you on the back or anything like that. He's just sort of like nods, as if to say something like wise decision. And he takes you to what appears to be your own. You think it's your own tent to start off with, but then you notice that it's just like a lean-to of canvas next to your wagon, and they bring you what appears to be some kind of some kind of animal meat. You're not too sure what it is. It's very tough, and there's some very what appears to be it looks a bit like flatbreads, but it seems to be something other than flour that is being made out of. And you sort of like quietly sit and sort of like chew it, and it takes quite a bit of chewing, both the bread look-alike and the meat look-alike, and you manage to get your night's sleep, so any magic points can be replenished. You haven't cast any devotional pool, Bartleby, so you won't need to transfer any of your magic points in to do that pool. And it's almost like at the crack of dawn that you are woken by the leader once more and encouraged to sort of like take your goods. And in the morning, shortly just after sunrise, they sort of like take your cart, and there's 6 barbarians and the leader, and they make your way more directly to the actual mountains.
Before we go, can I ask him something before we leave the camp?
Yeah, sure.
So it can when we're agreeing to the to the trade of safe passage in return for killing it, Gulliver wants to say, I would ask one more thing though. My man here lost his spear on our journey. Do you have one that maybe he could use? Although he is not as strong as you, and his spear was a lot shorter in length.
He sort of like looks at Hazra, looks at you,
Maybe this high.
and he sort
of like tried to judge how tall Hazra's spear was.
Yeah.
I would be grateful if it'd be possible for you to replace my short spear, which I have lost.
Yeah, and he goes over and he picks up one of his long spears, and he sort of like looks at the height that you were sort of like gesturing, and he takes the pole and he sort of like puts it between his hands, and then with an almighty downward thrust as it brings it down over his knee, there's an almighty crack. The spear is just sort of like shot in two. It all sort of like sprays, and then he just twists it and it comes off, and he sort of like holds it out to you, Hazra. It's about the size of a short spear, which is fine, but it's, you notice all one end is all sort of like jagged and everything. And
pencil.
And he sort of like looks at you, Gulliver, and he says, real spear wielders can wield a proper spear, unlike we use short spears for our women folk. And he sort of like leaves the other piece of wood down on the ground, and a little child comes up and picks it up and scurries away with it and puts it onto a nearby fire. And you travel throughout the day, getting closer and closer to the mountains. If you remember the map, the mountains are to the east of you at the moment, and the river is roughly to the north of you, and so you're going sort of like straight to the mountains while the river comes round this way. So once you hit the edge of the mountains, traveling purely along it will actually reach the entrance where the Eel River goes into the Blackvale Mountains. And as you continue to walk, and it's getting late afternoon, and there's bitterly cold wind going down, blowing from north to south down your map at the moment. And as you get closer and closer to the mountains, all of a sudden you notice that your cohort of accompanying people, barbarians, slow down and almost like come to a stop. And the leader looks round, and then he looks at you and he says, they will go no further, for we are approaching the lair of the beast. And you carry on walking for about another 30 minutes, and you can still see the barbarians back with your cart and everything.
Before we leave them, can Gulliver say, what proof do you decide that?
The leader is still with you.
Oh, right, okay. So as we're walking, then Gulliver will say to him, proof do you require that the beast has been slain?
And he sort of like, he lets out, for the first time, he almost smiles at you. And it almost like, but it's not a pleasant smile. It's just almost like a sadistic smile. And he says, I will watch you defeat the beast. And he brings you to the area. Your wagon's there, but it's far away, so please don't use it. And these now, here and here and here and here, these are actually lumps of rock. They're all the big ones, the ones here and this one here. You can actually crouch behind if you wish. These little ones here, the only way you would be able to get any sort of cover from them is to lie down. And right over at the entrance, this...
I need to zoom out. Oh, no, I don't. What are you pointing, sorry?
Hang on, let me just change my layout. Here, can you see these?
Oh, right, yeah, between the two bushes.
Yeah, so that is a cave entrance, okay, but the entrance is almost twice the size vertically of Hengist, and it just seems to be it almost like looks like an archway into a city. It's not sort of like a tiny bear cave. It's huge. And
is it natural though? Or
yeah, well, that's what I was just about to say. It's definitely natural. And you can see where the vines, etc., are sort of like hanging down as if it's going. And this is sort of like the rock face that of the mountains, and you can see it's obviously been here for some time. And you notice sort of like round the entrance here, there's sort of like no grass or anything, and it just seems to be bare earth. And the leader sort of like takes you behind this rock and says, "Behold, the lair of the Zuktuk."
Hastra will want to look at the ground and see if we can see any tracks in this sort of, let me ping it. He wants to stay behind the rock here, but he wants to look sort of over here, see if there's any track marks.
Yeah. So you want to stand here?
Yeah, here, but sort of look around, sort of this sort of area here.
Yeah, well, the whole ground around here, it's devoid of foliage. So, but I mean, at this distance, you won't be able to make out proper tracks or anything. There's definitely a lot happening in here. It doesn't look like that it's not an undisturbed.
It looks like it's been travelled.
Yeah, very much so.
Very much travelled, right? Yeah.
We should prepare ourselves. Light is going to be required, and maybe certain blessings from Uncle Rufus.
Yeah, and Bartleby all goes, "Oh yeah."
Right. My blessings.
The barbarian leader just says, "You have 1 hour before the sun goes down."
Thank you.
Yes, you wish to do some blessings, Mr. Bartleby.
I think that'd be wiser when it gets closer to nightfall.
It's all classed as one scenario now, so anything that you cast on them will keep.
Why are we waiting till nightfall to do this? Would it be better to do it during the day?
We're not waiting till nightfall. We're just waiting for Uncle Rufus.
I believe the Zugtuk only comes out at night, correct?
The barbarian says, "Don't worry, I can get it to come out."
Right. In that case, I will begin to perform my blessings. Hengist, you first.
Is this just protection going on then?
I was going to do Aegis on his shield. I wanted him to put his shield on.
Okay.
So yeah, Angus will strap on his shield onto his left hand and then sort of like present it forwards for Uncle Rufus.
I guess if I was to describe all of the preparations I'm going to do, I wanted to do Aegis and Blade Sharp on Hengist, and then Protection and Blade Sharp on Hazra.
Okay then.
If that's okay. Here is the exhort. There's the information.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so the Aegis of power is now hovering with some kind of divine being on Hengist's token. Did you say you also wanted to put Blade Sharp on his as well?
Yes, on the sword. Here's the Blade Sharp. Here's the roll. Oof.
No, that you can take minutes.
Okay.
It's not an issue. So let's get my Blade Sharp icon on, and then do. So that'd be one miracle point, won't it, for your devotional pool for the Aegis, and then 1 magic point. So yeah, so next one is protection or blade sharp again.
Protection on Hazra.
Yeah. That gives you that Hazra.
And then I'm not going to ping it because I just put protection up there, but this is protection on Hazra roll.
You mean blade sharp?
Yeah, blade sharp and protection. That'd be the sharp there.
Is that crit on the other one?
The second one, yeah. So there'll be no magic points expended for that.
So I'm down 1 devotion, down 2 magic.
Thank you, sir.
Ambriel will protect all of us against the mighty Zugtuk when it's drawn out. Ulver. I don't know if I have a way to help you with Amriel's glory.
I wasn't planning on getting into combat with it.
I was hoping you wouldn't. But, doesn't. You stay back with me. We'll be safe. Amriel will protect us.
What do you make of the area to fight, Hengist?
Hengist will.
Do you see any advantages that we might be able to get over it?
Hengist will look for sort of like any tactical ground, so like any bits like bottlenecks, so that it can't flank around us, or any raised bits, so that we can sort of like be on level if it's huge, or sort of like slightly above it, so it's attacking. So we can hit over the top and those sorts of things. We look for strategically sound ground to attack it from.
Right, well, roll your strategy roll. You think that any missile fire would be best up on top of the boulders to be firing down onto the beast. You presume the beast is going to come out of the front. So you don't want... if anything, you need to keep it away from anybody who's hiding or out the way. Apart from that, judging by the size of the cave entrance, it's going to be one big animal, if it is at all an animal.
Hengist will... So we'll try and keep it close to the entrance so it has less room to maneuver. And if anybody, you can throw rocks or anything, if you would, might be an idea to get up on top of those. This big rock formation here.
I might get up on top of it so that I can...
Or you can watch it.
Well...
Let's build a pit trap.
There was stories of it changing forms and things. You think those were just tales to scare people?
All right, it's possible, but I believe that, well, I'm not sure. That's why I presume that it only comes out at night when it's in a form of strength.
I didn't know whether or not Amriel's sight might help us determine whether or not it was going to change.
If it has a mystical source, I suppose Amriel would reveal it to me, but I don't believe the monster myth was anything magical.
The leader says, "The sun is going down. You talk like women round the fire."
Gulliver's going to start climbing up.
Gulliver, before you climb up, perhaps maybe if you take a lit torch with you, maybe fire will harm this thing as well. I know bears are afraid of fire. If you've got a torch, you can thrust it in its face.
I'm not getting that close.
Well, you may not have no choice, my friend. Maybe it will get close to you.
I mean...
If it's hairy, it will burn.
I mean, henchman, do not tell me what to do.
Sorry, sir. It's just on protection.
Hengist is going to look at Hazra and say, "Now's better than never."
You're right. So
Make his way around the rock formation towards the entrance.
Hazard, watch him go. No.
I want to cast and hold a spell if I can.
Yeah, by all means.
I can't move my token.
So the spell that I want to cast and hold is that one.
Okay, yeah.
And as soon as I see something that is worthy of being cast upon,
Yeah.
that's the spell I'm going to. Well, mind you, it doesn't really matter because it's a one turn cast. So I suppose the only thing is I can take minutes to cast it now and hold it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So what I'll do, I'll take minutes to cast it and hold it, and then I'll release it on.
Can you move your character now?
I can move
No.
Hazra. Why can you
No,
not?
it's not. Although you can move it, but I can't. It's not letting me select it at all. Oh, hang on, that's something. No.
That's interesting. Why is it doing that?
He doesn't like me touching him.
Can you move that one?
Move which one, sorry?
the second one, the big one, the one without the blade shaft.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just let me put on what you've got. Cool. And let's just put you in the right box. Right, so Gulliver, you're up on top of a rock. Hengist, you're stood out there in the open with your glimmering, your shield and Amriel's shield next to it. Hazra, whereabouts are you going?
So I've worked out what's wrong with that. There's a small amount of space I can click onto on my token now it's shrunk down to move it. So I'm going to move to here,
Okay.
right in the middle.
So Angus is then going to draw his sword, and which has been touched by the light of Amriel, and he's going to sort of like go and stand a few paces away from the wherever the entrance is, and give a mighty bellow to try and get this thing out of its cave.
Did you do my sword or my spear? Bartleby?
I was wondering that. I would think the
Sword.
yeah, because you'd be using that more often. Even though the first thrown hit would be nice, I'd say the scimitar.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of a sudden, Hengist lets out this roar. Bartleby, you're still behind the rock, and the leader sort of like looks almost like shocked when Hengist lets out this roar. And Bartleby and Gulliver, you actually see him not in a cowardly way, but almost like in a shocked way, as if he was planning on doing something, but it's just been totally ruined. And he sort of like moves back out of combat completely. And Hazra, you're stood there, and Hengist lets out this huge roar. And you sort of like look down into the cave, and you notice, first of all, you almost like think that the blackness is moving. And then slowly, as it comes out of the cave, it actually covers the everything. This is a huge monster. It's absolutely gigantic, and it sort of like comes out and stands in the doorway of the
Jesus.
entranceway. And as it comes out, you suddenly realize, Hengist and Hazra, the reason you haven't even seen its eyes coming out is that as it opens its eyes, they're completely and utterly black. There's no sign of almost like life in there, and it has this jet black, silky fur. It moves almost like it's very hard to think that how something this big can move with so much grace. And it just it doesn't sort of like lumber out, it slowly moves, and then it just sort of like puts its huge claws down, and you suddenly realize that, you know, this is definitely the beast that attack. And you do notice as you stand there, Hazra, that you see down one side, it actually seems to have a bit of a spear jutting out from its side, and it seems to be about this much of the spear, and it is sort of like, as it moves, obviously the movement addresses it, and it just sort of like flicks it one of its back paws, and the remains of the spear just sort of like falls to the ground, and you see that there's no wound there at all. You suddenly get this feeling that this beast has tremendous hide. That spear, although you couldn't see half, almost like all the spearhead, it obviously was still just in the hide, and it sort of like rears itself up, and it lets out this huge guttural roar at you, and even the smell is unbelievable as it sort of like its breath flashes past you, and even Bartleby, you sort of like have a peep round and see this huge beast towering above both Hengist and Hazra. And let's have some initiatives, please. Gulliver, what's your modifier? 12. So you'll go before me. So that is the combat order, and that seems to be a perfect place to leave it for this week.
Shut the front
since
door.
There's only 2 minutes before 10. So, and I know, well,
can we not kill it in 2 minutes?
No. No, definitely.
Can it kill us in 2 minutes?
Well, there's only 2 of you who's going before it. So, I think that would be a good place to leave it in preparation. So we can start next week from that.
Rolling new characters.
Not next week, because Longshanks can't be here next week. So it'd be the week after.
Do we need Longshanks here next week?
No.
Well, we'll soon find out.
Could we not just do the first pass, and then maybe we don't need? Maybe Longshanks won't be here anyway.
Yeah, maybe he's got a special skill of tin opener.
Yeah, well, I'm just pleased that my pack of cards comes with 4 action points.
Don't be stupid. Nothing has 4 action points.
That's just impossible.
Unless it's a dragon.
Yes,
I killed a dragon today.
that math is impossible.
Yeah, so that seems. I'll just move you off that page, to the starting point page, and then we. Let me just get rid of that because we don't need that. So we'll see next week whether, or 2 weeks time, whether or not you are able to defeat the Zuktuk, and then maybe get back on your journey to the Chaos temple.
Everybody's going to be finishing the invention and quickly going to the rule book and going to the monster page to see what.
Zuk-tuk is. It's
Yeah.
probably a Chinese taxi.
Yeah, well, good luck with that. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, so does anybody... Thank you for tonight, guys. Well done. I'm really pleased that you didn't decide to stand alone against the screaming barbarian horde. Well done, Gulliver, because that could have been rather... nasty and well done for saying that you would help a Black Veil barbarian tribe out by killing the Zuk-tuk. Let's just hope no word comes to them that of your dealings in the tavern before we get back. So next week, hopefully, or the next playing sessions, hopefully, remember your luck will refresh, but also remember that you hopefully can defeat this beast or die trying, and remember that's the most honorable death ever. So does anybody have any announcements to make or anything that they would like to say before we finish the stream tonight?
I do not.
I do not either.
Nothing from me.
Cool. So just to let you know, I will be streaming again tomorrow at 2 o'clock BST time, when I will be continuing my journey with my necromantic tank called Grimbar, who is a
Nice name.
yeah, very good name. That was a bit spooky. If you weren't in the stream, we were talking about names, and I forget what it was called. Grim something, wasn't it?
Grimvine, I think I said.
And then we both, Chuggerwugger and I, typed Grimbark at the same time into the chat, as if we'd come to the same decision at the same time.
And then
First say Jinx.
once we'd both done that, we both then typed lol.
Yeah. Straight away as well. So I'll be back tomorrow 2 o'clock BST time for some more Elder Scrolls Online, and I'll probably be streaming on Monday as well because it's the bank holiday here. Yes, is it Labor Day in America?
I think it's Memorial Day.
Yeah. I don't know the difference. Sorry, but so
Do I?
no, but I know Easy Prey.
You're supposed to say that, Mr.
It's a
Pitt.
day.
No, I think you're not meant to admit that.
I was watching Easy Prey 2015 last night, playing the civilization games, I call it, and they were just saying that they got no work on Monday, so he had got enough food in and he wasn't planning on leaving the computer right the way through.
Labor Day is giving birth, and Memorial Day is regretting it.
So, I have no idea what Memorial Day is, but there's no good asking Mr. Pickles because do you know, Mr. Pickles?
I think you're supposed to remember people who died, but that's kind of a bummer.
Oh,
Yeah, Memorial Day
Professor of
is a
history.
federal holiday in the United States for remembering and honouring people who died while serving in the United States Armed Forces. And it's Monday, 27th, so it is Memorial Day.
Oh, that's lovely. That's like our 11th of November then, I assume. Yeah. Okay then. So if you've been watching us tonight, then thank you so much for coming along and joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the game, and hopefully you will want to come back next time to see whether or not the brave adventurers can defeat the Zuk-tuk. Until next time, can I please say to each and every one of you, please remember to be who you are and say what you think, because the people who mind don't matter, and people who matter don't mind. Have fun, and I'll catch you all later. And until then, happy Zuk-tugging. See you all later. See you all later, guys. Bye.
Bye.